Welcome to the C# programmer. In this video, we're going to be making a simple web application with a database connection where we're going to be able to actually add things to our database, delete, read from the database, and update whatever is in our database. So we're basically going to have just a simple application where we have departments and employees. So employees belong to departments, and we're going to be using the code first approach, meaning that we're going to be writing code first and then we're going to generate our database from code. And then secondly, we're going to be using a UI component library to create our user interface, which is called MudBlazor. Thirdly, we're going to be able to upload our project to GitHub, okay, so that we employ Git source control. Okay, so apart from that, I'm going to show you, I think, a list of what you actually need in order for you to successfully do everything that is going to be done in this video. So you're going to need Visual Studio 2022, Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, .NET 6, and GitHub Desktop. And the download links for all these are actually available in the description of the video below. So in case you don't find that, you can simply just comment in the comment section below, and I'll be glad to respond. So basically, Visual Studio is our IDE, of course. We're using SQL Server in order to manage our database, and then we're going to be using this Management Studio just to provide a proper user interface for our SQL Server. And the .NET 6 is the platform that we're going to be using, that we're going to be creating our application, our web application on. And then obviously I explained what GitHub is actually used for. So if you actually need more information on this, you can find a lot of documentation. All these are by Microsoft, so you'll find a lot of documentation on the Microsoft site. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Alright, so before we go ahead, I would like to show you exactly what our simple web application is doing. Alright, so as I explained earlier, we have a one-to-many relationship here where many employees can belong to one department. Okay, so what happens here is we can add departments. For example, let's just say example, because we're going to be able to delete it later. Example department. I already have a few departments here, but yeah, don't worry, we're going to create everything from scratch. So we can simply just say add department, and we can see that our example department has been added in real time. So we can actually modify this by clicking our edit button there. We can simply, let's say, delete the word department. We say that, and I guess you can see it's actually been updated. And we're also going to be able to delete. So Crud, create, read, update, and delete functionalities are I can say the most important things that you need to know in order for you to actually get started with proper web application development, because you always need to create, read, update, and delete from your database. And also we are actually going to be able to create a simple search here where we can actually search. So I guess you can see right now, if you search for that, there's nothing, but if we correct the spelling there, I guess you can see our search is able to work. And then our employees, we're gonna have an example. Let's say we have an example, there's this name here, one employee, just a random man number, and we can select the department that they belong to. Okay, so the only departments that show here are the departments that are in the departments table. All right, so let's say this person is from planning. We can add the employee, and as well we can edit or even delete the employee. All right, so we just make sure to say every time an action is completed, we also call what we call the snack bar. All right, so I guess you can see that's basically how our application works. And the good part is that you can find all this code on a GitHub, my GitHub repo that is actually public, so you can be able to download the code, and the link to the GitHub repo for this project is actually in the description section. All right, so I'm just going to show you how you can actually maybe get that code. If we use the link in the description, let me just get the link. Okay, so we're just going to obviously click on the link if it's in the description, or if not, we can copy it and put it in our browser. It's going to take you to this this GitHub repository, so you'll be able to just come to code, and if you have Visual Studio already installed, you can simply open with Visual Studio. But if not, you can get the code later on when you have Visual Studio, or you can just download the zip file if you wish to use maybe something like Visual Studio Code or anything like that. Yeah, otherwise we are using Visual Studio 2022 for the purpose of this video. All right, so let's go ahead and start developing our project from scratch. Right, so the first thing that we're obviously going to do is open our Visual Studio, and thereafter we're going to be creating a new project. So right now what we want to do is create a project. So this is what we are actually doing right now. We want to create a new Blazor server project. Okay, so first things first, we're going to say create a new project, and on more information on what Blazor server actually is and how it actually works, you can see the documentation in the description section below. Otherwise, this is a very simple to understand concept. Okay, and I've actually explained it in one of my previous videos. The link is also in the description below. And all right, so let's get started. So we're going to create a Blazor server application, or if not, you can simply just try to search for it there. Okay, so Blazor server, and we're going to say next. Okay, thereafter we're going to give our repository a name, our project a name, sorry. So we're just going to call this employee management. All right, and we're going to create it right on the desktop. Okay, so we can say next. And thereafter, sorry, I think I should have let me just change the directory. Just want it to save on the desktop directly. All right, like that, and we can say next. And thereafter we are using .NET 6 as I mentioned earlier, so we can simply just say create, and our project is going to be created and built. So let's just wait for a moment. Alright, so our project has been built successfully, and the first thing that you want to do maybe is run it, so that you just confirm that it's actually working just fine. Alright, so if you know you installed everything correctly, you simply just need to click right there, and your project should be able to run. So our browser should open, and it should be able to show us what is currently there. Alright, so I guess you can see this is what we have currently. We have a simple just a simple template created for us by our Visual Studio, and okay, this doesn't really have any use for us right now. So the second thing that we're going to be doing, so I guess you can see we created a server project, we run our project, and we're going to clean our project. So by cleaning our project, I mean we are actually going to remove all these irrelevant things that we don't actually need right now. So let's dive right into doing that. So just simply going to maybe close this, and then we're going to go to our Solution Explorer as it is here, and let's just delete the weather forecast. We don't really need that. We can also delete, the only thing that we actually need right now is just our project. Okay, we can also delete from our pages. We can delete the counter page. We can also delete the fetch data page. I guess you saw all this. And then we can also delete, we can go to our program.cs file there, and we can also just remove the weather forecast services from there. Okay, and thereafter we can go to our index. There's something that was referencing our survey prompt here that we are also going to delete there. And I think we should be done with the cleaning right now. Let's just go to our share. Let's delete our survey prompt and just remove from our index, and there we have it. So this time around, if we run our project, let's just run it, we're going to see to say, okay, we've actually removed a number of things from our project, and it's actually almost as blank as it should be. Oh, we have a problem. Oh, okay, so after deleting our weather forecast data folder, we can also just delete, and I guess this is too small. I hope this is now big enough for everybody to be able to see. All right, so we can just delete that. All right, and thereafter we can try to run our project. Right, so now that our project has run, we can now try to go back to those pages, like the counter page. As you can see, there is now nothing at this address. Fetch data, there is nothing at this address. And I would just like to show you actually the code behind this navigation menu. All right, so this whole thing on our left pane here is our navigation menu. So let me just drag my Visual Studio. Okay, just bring the Visual Studio back. So this nav menu is found in the shared folder. This one here, nav menu. So I guess you can see, if we can put this side by side, actually, something like that. Okay, we can still see, but we can just minimize that. Something like that. So maybe I'm just going to reduce a little bit, okay, the size of the code there, and I guess you can see now. So this first button here is our home button, this one here. I guess you can see the second one here is the counter button, this one here. So I guess you can see this is I guess if you know HTML, you know what href means. So this is more like the link which takes us that it tries to find in order for it to go to the counter page. So now that we deleted the counter page, we are not going to it's just going to say sorry, there's nothing at this address, because there's no reference to the counter page that exists in the project now. Okay, and then this is simply just the word that we're actually seeing here, counter. All right, so if we are able to change this actually right now to employees, let's just do that. And using Visual Studio 2022, we have the benefit of hot reload. So okay, hopefully this is going to work fast. So we just change that to employee and we say save. Okay, and then let's just wait for a moment. We're going to see a change actually right there. So you can be building your UI without, so I guess you can see there's actually change. So now we have employee, but remember that it's still trying to take us to our counter page. So we're going to fix that later on. And that's just basically what I wanted to show you for now. But let's continue with actually just our content. Let's just try to follow our contents page. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually create a GitHub repository for our project. Okay, so if you installed GitHub or you already have GitHub installed, or you've managed to install GitHub, here is what we're going to do. So first things first, we're going to just stop running debugging our project. And secondly, I guess you can see there's a small thing here that says, small button here that says add to source control. Okay, so that's you're just going to find it down there. And since we installed GIT, we're going to simply just click on GIT, and our GitHub desktop is going to pop up here. Okay, so we're simply trying to create GitHub repo called employee management. Now since I already have this, let me just change the owner to Soft. Okay, so employee management, and I guess you can see we can now actually create and push. So just okay, so just give me let me just change the name anyway. Employee management, let's just try to add the word system there. Okay, so it doesn't really matter, and now we can simply say push. So I'm just going to change back to C# programmer, and we're simply going to say push. I don't in case you just have maybe one here, you don't even need to change anything anyway. Yeah, so we simply just say create and push, and this should be able to show us some feedback in there. We should be able to see some change there. Okay, so I guess you can see now it's trying to set up all these things that we've done so far, trying to push all these changes to our GitHub repository, and I think it should be done. Okay, so let's just try to go to our GitHub. So you can go to your GitHub and try to check if the repository has been created. Otherwise, when you go to our JIT changes, I guess you can see right here 2 outgoing, 0 incoming, and meaning that it's actually been a success. So let's just try to go to GitHub. So I'm just going to go back to the main home page. Okay, so I guess you can see our repository has been created up 32 minutes ago, and we can actually just click on it so that we can open it, and there we have it. We have all the files that we have currently in our project. Okay, which is very good for now. Okay, so we're going to be using GitHub for source control. Alright, so that's basically it with the GitHub issue for now. Let's go back to our code, and I guess you can see that's the message that should come in case you have successfully created your GitHub repository. Okay, so let's see the next thing on our agenda for this video. So the next thing is installing the required Nuget packages. Okay, so we're going to be using a tool that is called Entity Framework Core, and this Entity Framework Core is going to be help us with our database connections, going to help us with creating our database, and it's also going to act as an object relational mapper to the database, as I say, to enable the communication of the objects and the database entities that we're going to create. Okay, so first things first, we're going to right click on our project. So just make sure to note that there are two things here. So there's a solution, which is more like the parent file, and then there's the projects inside the solution. So we're right clicking on the project. After right clicking the project, we're simply going to say manage Nuget packages, and we should have our Nuget package manager open. All right, so we're going to install 4 Nuget packages. So we just make sure that we're on our browse tab instead of our installed. So we go to our browse, and make sure that you have an internet connection for this, because you're installing them from the net. Okay, so the first one that you're going to install is Microsoft Entity Framework Core, Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. So you can just search for that, and it should be the first one. So we simply just install it from there, or you can click that install button. Either way works. Okay, so let's just quickly do that. Alright, should be installed. The second one that we need is Microsoft Entry Framework Core.tools. And the goodness is, you know, all these things actually have very good descriptions that you can actually read about. So we can install that tool as well. Okay, accept. Right, then the next one, we can install Microsoft.Entry Framework Core.design. So let's just wait for that to get installed. Okay, .design. All right, I think I actually saw it, but okay, yeah, there. And then the last one, since we're using SQL Server, we're going to install Microsoft Entity Framework Core with the SQL Server provider. So we're just going to search for that, and should be the first one there. Okay, so we're also just going to install that one. So enter, accept. Okay, so basically for now, those are the 4 Nuget packages that we're going to install. So you can just go to your installed and just check whether they are installed, or another way you can view the installed. So just make sure you clear your usage there. Yeah, another way you can view the installed Nuget packages is to open your CSproj file. Okay, so you just double click on your project and it should be able to open this employee management.csproj. That's the file that we're talking about. So I guess you can see, we can even see the versions that were installed. So you can see Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft.Entry Framework Core SQL Server. We can see the version there, that .design and Entry Framework Core itself. We have everything there. So this is where you find all the Nuget packages that you're going to install, okay, as package references. All right, so we're going to go ahead with the next part of our video, which is now adding a new project. Actually, why did I say solution there? So we're adding a new project. Okay, now we're adding a new project, and we're going to call it employee management.shared, and this project is the one that is going to have our models. Okay, so in order for us to be able to generate our database from our code, we're going to have to create, first of all, what we call our models. Okay, so these models are going to be in the shared project, and then thereafter we're going to have to create what we call a DBContext, which I'm going to explain. We're going to have to register our DBContext, our database context. We're going to have to create a connection string, and we're going to have to add the connection string to the registered database context, and thereafter we're going to be able to do these 2 commands: run migration and update the database. So all this that we're doing here is very much necessary in order for us to create a database from our code. So let's start with adding a new project where we're going to add our models. So it's important to create our models in what we call a class library, so that we can be able to use them again even in another project. All right, so we're simply going to right click on our solution. So I explained to say there are 2 things here: there's a solution and there's a project. So this time around we want to add a project, so we're not going to add a project to our project, but we're going to add a project to our solution. All right, the one on top here. So we're simply going to right click our solution, and we're going to say add a new project. And the project type that we're adding now is a class library. All right, so we're simply going to select class library, or you can actually search for it from there, and make sure that it's a C# class library, because that's the language that we are using. All right, so a C# class library. So we simply just click there and say next, and thereafter we're going to name our class library, as I said, employee management yeah .shared. Okay, so you can call it anything, but I'm going to call it that. So we can say next, and we can say create. All right, then we can see that our project has been added to the solution, so it exists as an independent project from this one, but it's referenced in our Srver project. So this is our Srver project where we are currently having our UI. We're going to have our application logic and all that, but for this project it's simply just there to hold our models. So in case you don't know or understand yet what our models are, our models simply let me break it down to maybe the simplest way I can say it. Our models are simply the tables that we're going to have in our database. So in this case, remember we're creating a simple employee management system where we're just adding employees to departments. So we are going to have a model called departments, and we're also going to have a model called employees. All right, so let's dive right into creating those models. So we're just going to delete this class. And by the way, models in this case are just C# classes. All right, so we're simply going to right click on our employee management dot shared project, and we're going to say add a new class. Okay, so in case you don't have this option here, you can simply just say new item, and from new item there, it's just going to load what templates are available, but we're looking for a C# class, so just make sure to say it's a C# class. As you can see there, it even says Visual C# items. All right, so this time around we're going to start with the department. Okay, so we're going to add a department, a class called department. So what does a department contain? First things first, we're going to make this public because we want to use it everywhere. Okay, public. And then secondly, we're going to create first of all, we need a primary key, which is an integer, of course, and we're simply just going to call this department ID. Okay, so I guess you can see department ID. The next thing that we want is simply the department name. All right, so we want the department name, which is a string, and we're simply just going to say department name like that. All right, and the next thing, remember that in a department we have a number of employees, so that number of employees can be stored in a list. All right, a list of employees. So we are going to create a list of employees in our department model. Okay, or let's say an employee list in our department table, if you can just break it down like that, but model should be the better way to use there. So we're going to create a list. This is how you create a C# list. So we're going to create a list of type employee, just employee, not employee management, and we are going to call this list employees. Okay, since it's a list containing employees, we're going to call it employees. All right, and it should be of type employee. Now remember that we haven't actually created the employee model, so I guess you can see that's why we're actually having some red line there showing an error. Okay, so there are many ways you can actually solve this. So the next thing is we're going to create the employee model. Now we can do it we can do it with the help of Visual Studio by just saying show potential fixes, and then we say generate, we can use this generate type employee, or we can simply just also create it ourselves. So we're going to go with the second option. So we're going to right click our employee management dot shared project again, and we're going to say add a class, or we can say new item. It doesn't really matter, you just have to make sure that you're adding a class anyway. Yeah, a C# class. So we're going to say we want to create a model now called employee. All right, so this employee is also just going to have a few details. First of all, we change that from internal to public. Okay, and secondly, we're going to say PROP, and then you just hit tab twice. That's how you do that. So employee. Now since we've created our employee, actually when we go back to our department here, we can see that employee the red line under employee showing an error is actually gone. And you know why? It's now because we have a type of employee there. So if we hover over there, it can actually show us to say this is coming from employee management.shared.employee. That's exactly what it is. All right, so that's basically it. So we go back to our employee there, and we make sure that we also start with a primary key. So our primary key, employee ID. Okay, and thereafter we can say prop tab again. We have a string just for the first name, prop string. We have our last name. Okay, and thereafter maybe we can have a small detail like a man number. So man number. Okay, and now remember that every employee belongs to a department, and departments have lists of employees. All right, so in our employee table or employee model, we are going to need to have two entities, two attributes. So the first one is going to be an integer of employee ID, okay, which is going to be a foreign key in this model. And then secondly, we're going to have a department. Okay, so remember, each employee belongs to a department, so we're going to have a department of type department. So remember, this is the type. So I guess you can see here we've got public int, so the type here is integer, the type here is string, the type here is integer again, the type here is integer. But if this time around here the type is department, so we have a department of type department, and this department is simply this department that we have here. And sorry about this, this is supposed to be department ID. Yeah, we can just change that to department ID. Okay, and there we have it. So we can just save and continue from there. Okay, so we have added our models, and we have actually linked them to each other, so using a one-to-many relationship, as you have seen. Okay, secondly, after adding our models, we're going to have to create a database context class. Okay, so we're going to have to create a new class this time around in our Srver project. Okay, so we just right click our Srver project, and then we say add a class, and we're going to call this class application DBContext. Yeah, so something like that. So our application DBContext is what handles the connection to our database. Okay, so every time there is something to do with the database, whether creating, reading, updating, or deleting, our database context is called, and it is disposed of as soon as that operation is done. Okay, so that's basically it. Now this application DBContext should inherit from DBContext. Okay, and this DBContext is coming from Microsoft Entity Framework Core. All right, so I guess you can see we're going to have an error there, but that's easy to solve. So in case your Visual Studio is okay, it's going to bring something like show potential fixes. When you click on that, you simply say using Microsoft Entity Framework Core, so you just click on that. And in case your Visual Studio is not okay to actually use IntelliSense like that, then you're just going to have to type this manually. Doesn't hurt, just just 3 words. Yeah. Okay, and thereafter we are going to actually create a constructor for our DBContext class. So we can simply just say CTOR. This is Visual Studio, CTOR tab, and we have something like that. But if shortcuts are not working for you, you too bad, you're just going to simply have to type everything. Okay, so yeah, we have our application DBContext there, and then we're going to pass in DBContext options, which is also from Microsoft Entity Framework called DBContext options. So I'm just going to make sure I spelled that right. DBContext options, and this one is a generic here, and we're going to pass in our DBContext, which is our application DBContext in this case. All right, so going to have that parameter named options, and thereafter we are going to say base options there. Okay, so I guess you can see if we hover over that there, I guess you can see this is not supposed to be now, and this is simply a parameter of the parameter of the DB context. It's simply these DB context options here of type application DB context. Okay, so I can see we have a small error here, but we are going to have this sorted out. Okay, so we're not going to close with terminating there. We're simply just going to have, yeah, because it's more like a method like that. All right, so thereafter we're going to just probably delete this. Okay, then we're going to continue. Now we're going to register our department model and our employee model in our database context class. Okay, so remember, this is what enables our connection to the database. Okay, so it should have the knowledge of what exactly is existing in the database. So in the database, we want to have our employees, so we're going to call it exactly the way it is here, employee, and we're also going to have departments. Okay, so department like that. Now it's not just as straightforward as typing this. I just wanted to show you what we are actually going to have, so we can maybe just comment these out like that. All right, so for our employee, we're going to say public virtual. You can take a look at what most of these keywords that are going to be used in this video mean. Okay, so we're going to have a DB set, all right, which is going to be represented as a table in our database of type employee. All right, of type employee, this employee that we have here. All right, and we're going to have our get and set properties there like that. All right, and then the next thing that we're going to have is our department DB set. Okay, so we can just duplicate that. You just say Control D to duplicate, and then we can just cut it and put it underneath this comment there. All right, and then we can just fix the formatting. All right, so this time around, this DB set is going to be of type department. All right, so this means that we're going to have two tables in our database, a department table and an employee table. So we have these errors right now because we haven't yet referenced our employee management.shared project. Okay, so we're simply just going to hover over there, and we're going to say show potential fixes, and you can see here it says add reference to employee management.shared. Okay, so we're just going to click that, and it should be able to sort out our error. Okay, so I guess you can see it has actually added using employee management.shared there on top. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're actually done with creating our database context. So the next thing that we're going to do is register our database context. So every service and every service or anything like DB context that you have created in your project should be referenced in the program.cs file. So our program.cs file is just right here. So I'm simply going to open our program.cs file, and thereafter we're going to register our database context just down there. Okay, So we're simply going to say builder.services. I guess you can see that's exactly how our services have been registered. And this time around, we're going to say add DBContext. Okay, so add DBContext. And what is the name of a DBContext? It's called application DBContext. Okay, so it's called application DBContext, and thereafter we're going to open our brackets there, pass in a parameter options. Okay, so options, we're going to use a lambda expression. More on lambda expressions, you can simply just try to use the Microsoft Docs documentation. Okay, so here we're going to try to get our connection string using the configuration method. So builder.configuration.get connection string. We would have just passed it here, so there are a lot of ways to actually do it, but we're just going to use that. So we're going to name our connection string. We're just going to name it constring, okay, like CONN string, something like that. But remember that this is not yet existing, and we're also just going to make sure that we terminate there. Okay, so we have 2 errors, and these 2 errors only because in our using we haven't referenced Microsoft Entity Framework Core, and we haven't referenced the actual project where application DBContext is coming from, Microsoft Entity Framework Core for Use SQL Server. So we're going to start with this one to fix the errors. So show the error, so using employee management, yes, and thereafter for the use SQL Server, we're simply adding using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Okay, so just hover over that and it should trust show potential fixes, and we're simply just going to make sure we click there and we have our Microsoft Entity Framework Core there. Okay, so I guess you can see it's like we still have some errors in our we still have some errors in our database context. So let's just go back there, application DB context, and just try to see what the problem could be. Okay, so we're having a DB set of type employee, but then we're not giving it a name yet. So we have to give it a name. So simply just going to be called employee there, and this is going to be called department, and that should actually solve everything for us. Okay, so we're just going to make sure the formatting is right, and we are actually good to go from here. So I guess you can see if we go back to our contents, we were supposed to add our models, create a DB context, which we have done, register the DB context, which we are from doing, and now we are going to create our connection string and register this connection string in our DB context. But the goodness is we have already registered our connection string. We have already added our connection string to our DB context because we have already put its name here. Okay, this is the name of our connection string. So we can even just copy that. Sorry about that. Yeah, we can even just copy that and make sure to say it's the name of our connection string. So our connection string exists in appsettings.json. Currently it doesn't exist because we haven't created it, but we're going to create it in appsettings.json, the appsettings.json file, which is found in the Srver project. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to do that. Connection strings, I guess you can see it's already there. We have a full colon there. We can just press enter. Then we're going to put the name of our connection string. Okay, so the name of our connection string is constring. Remember, we got this from the program.cs after registering here. So if we change the name here, the same name that exists here as this string here is the same name that should be here. All right, and thereafter we just say full colon, and inside there is where we are actually going to have the values of our connection string. So the first thing that we're going to have is a saver, and if you use the default instance of SQLServer, you're going to simply just say dot here, okay, and terminate. But if you didn't, you're going to have to put your computer name. For example, my computer name is Clarence, and then we're going to use this backslash, and you're going to put it twice and say SQL Express, like that. All right, and then you terminate. Okay, so for me, I'm using the default. I have both servers, but I'm just going to use the default, which is the dot. Okay, then thereafter we're going to say the name of our database. So remember, we're doing the code first here, so we don't have a database first, but we're going to assign it a name from here, and it's going to be created using the name that we're going to assign here. So I suggest we name it EAM database. Okay, just you can name it anything, employee database, you can name it anything that you need. Yes, you won't really even be using this database name that much anywhere, even in your code. Okay, so we also just finish up by making this a trusted connection. Okay, so trusted connection equals true, like that. All right, so we should be done with our connection string. Okay, so far we have managed to achieve and accomplish these things here. So we've added our models, we've created DBContext, we've registered our DBContext, we've created our connection string, we've added our connection string to the DBContext, and that is all that we need in order for us to actually now create our database. So as we are going to be running the commands to ensure that our database is created, we are going to open our SQLServer Management Studio. Okay, so for me, I have it pinned on the taskbar here, but if you don't, you can just search for it and open it. I guess we all know how to open applications. Okay, so you open your SQLServer Management Studio, and I'm only opening this to just confirm with you that our database is actually being created right from the code. Okay, so SQLServer Management Studio is loading. Okay, and there we have it. So we're simply just going to say connect, and actually yeah, this is the server that I want. So you just say connect, and thereafter we can expand our databases. Then it's going to show us our databases, and then currently, I guess you can see I have these superhero, employee, DB, college app, blogs, and all that, but we don't have our EM database yet, because remember, we are calling our database EM DB EM database. Actually, let me just go back to my app, say this.json. Yeah, EM database. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell entity framework code to say, okay, with the models that we have, the application DBContext that we have, and using the parameters in our connection string, I want you to create instructions of how my database is going to be created. Okay, and that is simply going to be done using a command called add migration. So we're simply going to run the command add hyphen migration, and then we're going to give this migration a name. Okay, so this add migration takes in the name of the migration. So we're just going to call this migration init, and then we're just going to press enter like that. Okay, so this is not going to be possible if you haven't installed those Nuget packages that we were installing, which are Microsoft Entity Framework Core, Design, SQL Server, okay, and tools. You will need all those in order for you to be able to run all these commands in Entity Framework Core. Okay, so I guess you can see we're doing this in the package manager console. But then in case your package manager in case you can't find your package manager console, I think you find it in tools. Yeah, you should find it in tools and Nuget package manager, and then you can simply say package manager console. All right, that's the one that should pop up there, and once you open it, it will, I think, always just be down there. Okay, so I guess you can see well, I didn't type all this code, just had to write a command which actually creates what we call migration. So I guess you can see a folder here called migrations has actually been made, okay, and we have those classes in there. All right, so these migrations are simply have instructions of how our database should be created. Okay, so you can look at that code. I guess you can see it says create table, the name is department, the columns, we have those columns there, and then create another table, we call it employee, which is having employee ID, first name, last name, my number. Otherwise this code is just auto-generated for you, and you don't really have to waste time trying to create your database, you know, and all those things. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is, we don't have our database yet, we just have the instructions of how it should be created. So now we're going to run a command called update database so that our database is created. Just make sure correct spelling there. update, yeah, update database, like that, and you press enter. So it always has to build, and if there are no errors, the build has to succeed, and it should be able to create our database in no time. So I guess you can see entry framework call has been initialized and all those commands running. Okay, and you should see something say done there. All right, so if it says done, it means that there is no error and everything has been done. So if you go back to SQL Server Management Studio this time around, we just right click our databases and say refresh. We're going to have a new database, okay, which is EM database that we just added. So this should be empty right now. It should have those two tables. Let's just check. Let's just expand tables as well. Okay, and then you can see to say we have our department and employee tables in our database, which should be empty for now. All right, so far so good. If you have any questions, remember you can drop them in the comment section below, and I'm going to be glad to answer them. And if you are enjoying the video so far, you can subscribe to my channel and also like this video for support purposes. Okay, so the next thing, we have managed to actually create all we have managed to create a database from our code, and remember that we're using source control here, so we can actually just push our changes to our GitHub repository. So you just go to your Git changes tab there, or you can even click on those changes there. Okay, still just opens up the same thing. Okay, so here we're going to make a commit of all these changes that we've done here. So we're just going to say database connection, or let's say database configuration done. All right, that's the message that we're going to have there. Let me just say commit all, and make sure that you are actually connected to the internet. All right, yeah, so after saying commit all, it's not yet done, it's only created that commit locally, so we have to push to GitHub so that the changes are also updated on our GitHub repository. All right, and yeah, anybody you share the link to should be able to download the updated code, or anybody that you're collaborating with. I'm going to show how to add collaborators and all that later on. That's not really the core of this video. Okay, so I guess you can see successfully pushed the region master. Okay, so now since we have done that, we're just going to go back to our content so that we see what we have next on our agenda. Okay, we've run our migrations, we've updated our database. So now I guess you can see we have done more than what is actually left. Okay, but what is actually left is the core of this video. Okay, so we've checked that our database exists using Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. We've done a commit and a push to GitHub, and now we are going to create what we call an interface. Okay, a generic interface and a generic service. So in this application, we're not really going to create read, update functionalities for both department and employee. Okay, so to save on time, we are going to create something generic which is going to work for both. Okay, which is actually a very interesting feature. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a folder called interfaces. All right, so we say a new folder, and we're going to call this folder interfaces. Okay, like that. Thereafter, we're going to add an interface in here. So it's simply going just going to right click on our interfaces, and we say add. Okay, this option will always be there, but if you don't have it, you just go to new item and make sure you select a class, and then you actually select the interface class here. Yeah, so we select interface, and we're going to call this interface. I think everybody that I've seen always has the habit of creating an interface using starting with an I. So since this is a generic interface, it's not specific to employees or departments, it's generic. We're just going to call it maybe something like Crud, okay, something like that, and then we're simply going to say add. Okay, so now what exactly is an interface? I think that's the question you're asking right now. So an interface basically contains the methods that should be executed by a service. Okay, so in this case, we want to have a situation where we're able to add, delete, update, and also read from our database. Okay, so we want to have all those functionalities, okay, defined in our interface. So our interface is just going to define those, and they are going to be those methods, and those methods are going to be registered in the service. Okay, they're going to be implemented in the service. So I think you're going to understand as we actually go ahead further. So since, as I say, this is a generic interface, we're going to put that generic, and we're just going to put a T inside there. Okay, and we're going to say where T is a class. All right, so this T that we're going to pass in here is going to be a class. For example, the way we have this database department and employee. Okay, we're going to be passing that in there. All right, and then inside our interface, we're now going to define the methods. Okay, so the first thing that we want to be able to do is to add. All right, so want to add an entity. Okay, so want to be able to add an entity, which is this T there. All right, and then we also want to be able to update. So we have these bool values so that it's either it should or it should not happen, whether update or don't update, delete or don't delete, add or don't add. Okay, so bool delete T entity. It's good that Visual Studio actually knows what I want to actually type. So here we also want to get by ID. Okay, so we also want to be able to return an entity by ID, and then we also want to be able to return a list of everything. Okay, so we can just call this the get all function. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a brief explanation on these methods that we have created. Okay, you can call them methods or functions. Yeah, so now here we want to be, this is just going to allow us to add an entity. Okay, this is just going to be able to help us delete, oh sorry, update the entity. So in case we have any changes to that entity, we want to modify it. Delete is helping us delete, obviously, and then our get by ID here, I guess you can see we're passing in an integer called ID. So remember that all our primary keys here, the IDs, are integers. All right, so we want to return by the integer primary key. Okay, so in our iCrud here. Okay, then this one we want to return a list of all every row in the entity. Okay, so that's basically it. If you need more clarification, you can just drop a comment in the comment section below. All right, then thereafter, since we have created that interface, which is a generic interface, we are also going to create a generic service, okay, which is going to be able to perform all the create, read, update, and delete functionalities for both the department and the employee. All right, so thereafter, we're going to create a new folder in our project here, our server project. Right click, add, and we're going to say folder, and this folder is going to be called services this time around. Okay, so services, as I said, are simply implementations of the interfaces. So inside our services here, we're going to add our first service. Service is also just a class, and this time around it's not an interface, it's just a C# class itself. All right, so we're going to call this service base, since it's also like the base service. It's a generic service. Okay, so I'm simply just going to do that, and okay, so I guess there you can see it's been created. Now this service, remember, is also going to be a generic service. All right, so what we're going to have to do in the first place is we are obviously going to make this generic there by adding that T again, and then we're going to say this inherits from iCrud. Okay, we're implementing iCrud in here, which is also a generic. So remember, if we go back to iCrud, it is generic. So we are simply just having the same thing that we're having here in our service base there. All right, yeah, so remember, the T is a class, so where T is a class, so we just repeat something similar to what we did there. Now this iCrud is not recognized here because we haven't referenced our interfaces folder, so we just hover over that, show potential fixes, and using employee management.interfaces, and there you have it. Okay, so if your IntelliSense doesn't work like that, you can simply just type this manually. All right, so now here we are simply going to create a read-only field, and so we're going to create an instance of our database context. Okay, so our application DBContext. So we're just going to call application DBContext, which is that one there, and we're simply just going to call it context like that. All right, and we terminate. Okay, and then this time around, going to just be a little bit fast, and then I'm going to explain what is actually happening here. Okay, so we want to be able to create these entities. Okay, so set T. All right, yeah, and it actually finishes up like that. Okay, so we can go ahead and then just create a constructor for our service. So CTOR like that, and we have our constructor, and then inside there we're going to pass in this application DBContext. Okay, in there, and we're going to call it context. Okay, so this is basically a parameter that we're passing into our service base. All right, so that's basically what we are doing right now. Okay, so I guess you can see it's telling us to say service base does not implement add, update, delete, and all these things. So we can do this automatically by just saying show potential fixes, and then we can say implement interface. So the goodness is Visual Studio knows to say, okay, these interfaces need to be this service implements this interface. Okay, the service base implements the interface iCrud. All right, so we're simply just going to click that, and we're going to have all those: the add, the update, the delete, and the get by ID, including the get all method. Although they haven't fully been implemented because you know, the methods are not complete, I guess you can see. Yeah, so we are going to need to complete that code. If not, then you can just type this manually. All right, in case your Visual Studio does not help you with that. But Visual Studio is a good idea because it helps you save a lot on time. All right, so we're going to start with our add. Before we do that, sorry, let's just say this context is context. Okay, so that we can be able to use it in our methods here. Okay, so this time around, I guess you can see we're simply, in order for us to add, remember this context is simply our DB context. Okay, and as I said, the DB context allows for all the database transactions that happen throughout your application. Okay, so every time we're dealing with database, remember we're going to be dealing with the database context. Now we're not going to say application DB context. Okay, we're going to use this context that we just created here using the constructor service base. Okay, so we say context dot set, since we are adding, set t dot add entity. Okay, so we're going to be adding this entity, okay, this t entity that we have here, okay, to the database. Then we're going to return context dot save changes. Okay, so the moment save changes is called, the DB context is disposed. All right, save changes where changes are not equal to 0. Okay, so I guess you can see that's basically it for now. And also it's good to just add, you know, the try catch blocks. So we simply just say try, we're going to have catch there. Okay, and inside our catch we're just going to say return false, like that, and then this is going to be inside our try block. Okay, so yes, you can see what's happening there right now. And I think we're missing, we should be missing something. Okay, we have a very small error here, so let's just see what it says. Okay, so since this is a method, we're just going to include those items there. And I guess you can see even here we have an error, and I don't know why this is saving changes, but it's supposed to be save changes. Okay, and that should do it for us. Okay, great. So we're just going to copy this try catch block because we're going to use it everywhere. So we just copy that, and then we're going to replace it in there. So now we've created our add functionality. Okay, the functionality for us to add to the database. Okay, so we're doing the back end right now. You are simply just, you know, we're simply doing what full stack development is actually. So we're doing the back end right now, and then we're going to be doing the UI later on. Okay, so now we want to update. So updating is not the same as deleting. Okay, it's different. So in this case, we're simply just going to say it's not the same as adding, sorry. So instead of add there, we're going to say update, and that's basically the only change that you're going to make there. All right, that's why I said we can just copy that try catch block. Then for deleting as well, it shouldn't be something difficult. We're just going to change from add to remove, because we're moving. If we're deleting, we're removing. So we just say remove. I guess you can see that. Then so that's our delete. Then for the get by ID, function, here it doesn't really matter. We just need to go directly and say return the context. Okay, context dot set t, and then just make sure it's the capital T, and this is a method like that, and we're going to say dot find ID. Okay, so it's going to look through until it finds the ID that has been passed. Okay, so this is the ID that we're talking about here, which is basically an integer. And then we're remaining with one method, which is the get all method. Okay, so here, remember, we're using C#, please. So we're just going to say return context dot set. Remember, this is generic t. Okay, and it's a method dot to list. All right, like that. So here we're simply just getting all the entities, or all the rows in our entities, and returning them as a list. All right, and then I'm going to show you how we are actually passing them into our UI. Okay, so this is basically all the code that we're going to need for our Crud functionalities: create, read, update, and delete. All right, now we're still going to need to create specific interfaces and services for employee and department classes, but we are not really going to add all this code again. Okay, we're going to reference this service base in those services. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create an interface for the employee, and we're also going to create an interface for the department. Okay, in our server project. Okay, so we're going to start with the department. So it's as simple as just saying, right click our interfaces folder, we say add, and then we say class here. Then this time around, remember, it's an interface. So every interface, you have a service, then that service you register it in the program.cs, of which I haven't done yet, but I'm going to show you how to actually do it. So our interface, we simply say I department. So as I said, every interface, we just start with an I just to differentiate it, or just to make sure that you remember it's an interface. So I department, and you say add. Okay, and there's nothing more that we're going to need from there. Okay, just like that, we've created our interface. We're also going to create an interface called I employee. So we simply just say I employee, like that, add. Okay, so I guess you can see, just check on my, okay, we're okay. Yeah, so I guess you can see I employee as well, just like that. And then thereafter, remember, since we've created two interfaces, we're going to create two services which are going to be implementations of those interfaces. All right, now these services are not really going to have any code apart from just inheriting from the service base and passing through that t, the parameter t, which is a class. Okay, so let me just do that without actually confusing anybody. So add, we're going to add a service now to our services folder, remember, and then we are going to call this service employee service. So we can start with or let's start with the department service. Okay, so this department service has been created, and thereafter, since it's a service and we have a generic service, we're going to make sure that this service inherits from the service base, okay, which is more like our base service. And the service base, remember, has got a t here. It's generic, it's where t is a class. So what class are we trying to pass through here? We're trying to pass the department. Okay, so we just say department, and it's going to bring an error because we have to reference this project here where our department actually exists. So we just hover over that, show potential fixes, and using employee management shared. And for this here, okay, that error is actually going to be sorted out. So we just create a constructor for the service again. So CTOR tab, and it should create something like that for you. And again, you can see that error is lost. And thereafter, remember, this has to, okay, before we do this, let me just also make sure that we pass in our application DBContext there and call it context, okay, and then reference it there in the base function, okay, so context like that, and we should actually be done. This should actually be okay now. All right, so I guess you can see there isn't actually any error. Okay, so you just have to create a habit of actually pushing to your GitHub frequently, as long as the code actually works. So the good practice is actually to run your project, to build your project, to make sure that everything is okay, and then you push. So you don't just push anything with errors to your GitHub. Okay, you just have to make sure to say your GitHub only has clean code, error-free code, so that you're able to revert back in case you have any problems. Okay, so we're just going to say Control-Shift-B, which actually builds our project. So I guess you can see the build has started, and it should be done in a few seconds. So as that is happening anyway, we're going to continue with making those changes. So we're going to add our department, our employee service now, since we've added our department service. So we're now going to add our employee service. So we simply right click on services and we say add, and I guess you can see build succeeded 1 and 1 is up to date. Okay, so we simply also just let's just push to our GitHub repo, and we say you can type in any message. I'm just going to type in so far so good. Oops, yeah. So commit, push, yeah, and that's done. All right, so we can go back to our Solution Explorer. Okay, and we can continue by adding our employee service. So, what was that? No, cancel that. Okay, so the code is not really different from this, so we're just going to grab that. Add class employee service. Okay, and thereafter we are going to just replace that code. So it's basically the same code, we're just changing from department to employee. So employee service and their employee service on the constructor, and yeah, that's just basically it. And also change this to employee, okay, because we want the employee now. All right, so there's a bit of a typo there. We just make sure everything's okay, and Control-Shift-S to save all changes, or you can just make sure you save changes from there, but everything's okay. All right, so I guess you can see we have created a generic interface, which is iCrud, and this interface is implemented in the service base. We have created an iDepartment interface, okay, with just the interface for so I guess you can see, since there are no methods in the iDepartment interface here, there are actually basically no methods in the department service as well, apart from it just inherited from the service base, which is having all the Crud functionalities. All right, so I guess you can see that. Now what we're going to do is, okay, let's just look at our contents here. So we've already done creating of our generic interface, our generic service. So now we want to we've also created the specific interfaces and the specific services. So now we just want to register our interfaces in a file called imports.razor, okay, so that we don't have to call them every time in our UI, in order for us to be able to access the services. All right, so we're simply going to open our imports .razor file, and we're going to find it imports.razor. Okay, I was actually looking for it. All right, so there is our file. Okay, so what we're just going to have to do now is, first of all, we're going to say at using employee management.shared. Oh, that's actually already there. So at inject employee service. All right, and we're going to call this employee service. So we're just going to differentiate it by starting with a small letter there. Okay, like that. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, employee service. And then we're also going to say at inject our department service. Okay, and we're going to say department service again here. All right, so I guess you can see that is basically done. But then I guess you can see we actually have to reference our services folder there. Okay, so we're just going to duplicate that and change that to services. Okay, yeah, so using employee management.services, I guess you can see it's actually now trying to relate those things. Okay, so I guess you can see we have registered our services in our imports .razor file, and now the next thing that we want to do is register our services in the program.cs file. So we're simply just going to open our program.cs file, and remember we registered our connection string in this same file. All right, so just zoom in for everybody to be actually able to see. So we can register our services just underneath our application DBContext registration there. So we're simply going to say builder again .services, builder.services, yes, yeah, builder.services.add transient. All right, and we are going to register our employee service. All right, then we're just going to duplicate. So duplicate, when you just click in the line we want to duplicate, and you say Control D, and it duplicates. So here we want, okay, so using employee management.services, yeah, we just make sure we reference that, and all the errors should seem should actually be gone. Okay, so remember that these are methods anyway, so we simply just do that. Just do that there as well, and all our errors should be gone. Okay, and just create some space there. Okay, and Control Shift S to save everything. Okay, so we are done with our registration. So if we look at what we have to do next here, after registering our interfaces, our services, actually not interfaces, yes, our services in imports.razor. That's what we did before registering our services in the program.cs. Okay, we are actually done with this. So now we can confidently say we are able to add anything, a department or an employee to our database. We're also able to add we're also able to do anything like reading, updating, and deleting from the database. Now the thing is, we don't have the UI to do that right now. You know, we don't have the user interface to do that right now, and our user interface is the web application. Okay, so the web application does not have a UI right now. Okay, now I know well, you might know HTML, CSS, you know, those things that you use to create UI, but I think if you really want to create UI, beautiful UI very quickly, I should introduce you to a UI component library called MudBlazor. Okay, so we're going to install this in our project, and I'm going to show you exactly how you're going to do it. So the first thing that you're going to have to do is, the link is in the description below. You just go to MudBlazor.com. It's actually very easy to do. So I'm just going to bring my browser here. Okay, so yeah, and when you just click on get started here, it gives you instructions of how you can add this to an already existing project. Okay, or if you want, you can just you can either do this using their template, but since we didn't start with their template, we're just going to install this MudBlazor. Okay, and we just want to be able to create a UI using MudBlazor. So the first thing is we're going to install the Nuget package. So if you want, you can use the package manager console, but we're going to use the Nuget package manager. Okay, so you simply just go to your server project, the project where you want to build your UI. So I want my UI pages, okay, to be in this pages folder here, which is in the server project. So I'm going to right click my server project, and I'm simply just going to say manage Nuget packages. After saying manage Nuget packages, I'm simply going to my browse there, and we can install MudBlazor. So as you can see, it's actually something I've saved because I use this a lot to create my UI. Okay, it's a very good UI component library. Okay, I don't think you have to start creating your HTML from the scratch. You know what I mean? We shouldn't waste so much time on building UI. So you simply say accept there. We install just as we were installing those Nuget package managers at first. Okay, but this one is special. It contains it's some CSS and that. So we're going to make sure that we register everything according to how it's described on the MudBlazor website here. Okay, so the second thing that we're going to do is add this to our imports.razor. So remember, we have our imports.razor file. We had it open. Yeah, there it is. But if you don't see it there, you can just find it from there. Okay, so we're going to just put our using statements there like that. And I think we still have an error here. Cannot be found. Okay, so I think that error is... Okay, we're going to come and sort that out later on. Okay, so let's just continue with what we're doing for now. We've added our MudBlazor there, and then yeah, I can see now there's a typo here. It's employee. Oh, not like that, but employee. Yes, like that. Employee service. Okay. Yeah, so even as I said, we're going to try to solve that error later on. I kept on thinking about what was wrong, but yeah, it was just a typo. So we have referenced MudBlazor there in our imports.razor, and then thereafter we are going to okay, let's just go back to our browser. We're going to get these links, and we're going to put these links in our layout.cs HTML file. So this layout.cs HTML file is the one we just found there. Okay, so this shapes our layout. We're just going to put the links where the other links are. Okay, so Control KC just to sorry, yeah, that's right. And then thereafter we are also going to be able to just insert this script at the bottom of the same file, the layout.cs, just after our Blazor script there. Okay, we have our MudBlazor script. Okay, and the last thing that we're going to do is it's not the last thing, second last thing is register these in our services. So we're going to add Mud services in our services. Okay, so we go back to our program.cs. Okay, so this is where we're registering our services, remember, and we have that service registered there, add Mud services. Now this needs a reference here on top saying using Mud services or something like that. So let's just this should actually give us an error, but I guess you can see if we go back to the side here, all we need is to add MudBlazor or using MudBlazor.services. all right, that's basically what you're supposed to. So without this on top here, the add Mud services will not work. Okay, my IntelliSense should just be slow right now. Okay, then thereafter we're going to grab these and we're going to actually just put them in our main layout.razor. So main layout.razor is found in our server project, but in the shared. Okay, so main layout, there you go. So you can just drop them here. Okay, it doesn't matter anyway. Yeah, you can just drop them here. You can drop them after. You can drop them anywhere. Okay, so we're just going to save that, and we're going to try to build, but I think we can't build. We are actually having 4 errors wherever those should be coming from. So let's just check them out. You don't have to be scared of errors. Errors are part of code. Okay, so if we want to find our errors much quicker, we're just going to try to build the project. I know it's not going to build because of those errors, but we're going to find them using our output window. So sometimes whatever happens with Visual Studio, it might not just be able to display the errors for you, but yeah, you can use your output window to actually locate those errors very, very well. Okay, so I guess you can see it's building. Oh, actually there are no errors. Okay, so you see the Visual Studio wasn't just updated right there and then. So it's important to actually build in case you have errors that you doubt, to say, okay, I don't think this error is actually supposed to be there. It might just be a problem with Visual Studio. You can just try to build your project, and if it works, then well, there are no errors. So I guess you can see, yeah, it's just saying there's an error here, but there's basically no error. We can try to build again, but yeah, that's just going to be a waste of time. It's just Visual Studio delaying to actually find this file. So in such a case, you can also just try to restart your Visual Studio and all that. Okay, so we have successfully installed our UI component library, which is called MudBlazor, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump into actually creating the pages. Okay, so the first page that we're going to create is the department page, and this department page, we should be able to add departments using this page. We should be able to delete, we should be able to update, and we should be able to read, like fetch the data about these departments into a table, okay, that we're going to show in our UI page. Okay, so we're simply just going to say right click on our pages folder in the Srver project, then we say add, and this time around we're going to add a razor component. So this razor component, we're going to render it as a page. All right, so we're going to call this razor component. More on razor components, you're going to find a link in the description below explaining on what exactly razor components are. So with this video and all the information that you're going to find in the description section, you should be able to have at least a good understanding of what is actually being done in here. Okay, I wanted to cut this short, but I think I would rather just explain what you need to know, yeah, so that you don't need to watch any other videos for you to get acquainted with Crud in Blazor Srver. All right, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and create our department page. So yeah, we can just call it department page like that, and we say add. And in case you can see that error which was troubling us is gone. And this time around, we are going to do some routing. Okay, so remember when I said our nav menu, let's just run the project first of all, so that I can explain what you know, you can see what I am actually talking about. Okay, so let's just run our project, have the UI, and we can see what exactly we're talking about. All right, so yeah, we just wait for that. Okay, so there we have it. Our project is running, and I'm just going to put it on this side, then have the Visual Studio window on this other side. Okay, so I guess you can see our project is running, and I guess you can see we have something employee and fetch data here. So now remember that I called this the nav menu. The menu is right there in the shared project. If not, you know, you can even just search there if you can't find the file. Yeah, so in the shared project, and just going to let it be our home. Yeah, and then this one we want it to be our departments page. So we're going to say departments, which is, so this departments is simply the word that is being shown here. So it's going to change with hot reload. I've saved the changes, so this should change to departments, and then this one should change to employees. So let's also just remove that fetch data and say employees. Save like that. Okay, and you don't know what's happening with hot reload, but it should change. If not, we're just going to reload our project. Yeah, but the main thing that I want to explain is that we have a page here, which is our departments page. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to hide this for a moment. Okay, now inside our departments page, we're going to create what we call the @page directive. Okay, so we're just going to say @page like that, and then we're going to put our /, and we're going to say departments. So we're just going to use this for our navigation. Okay, so this is departments. So this departments that is here is the same departments that should be in our href here. Okay, so that when we click on departments, it shows us what is currently on the departments page. So currently on the department page, we have this department page, right? Or we can just say departments like that. All right, so we can save that, and then we can try to rerun our application. Let's just try to restart our application. Okay, so we are restarting our application. Okay, I think something went wrong. Let's just restart it. Let's just run it again. Okay, so I guess you can see the application is back running, and we have those changes that we made now. So we have departments. Okay, and that's basically what is on our departments page. But for employees, it can't find that page. Okay, so basically why we create such buttons is simply just to navigate easily. Otherwise, you can just go into your URL and say departments. If you type in the same departments which you have in your code here, and making sure that these departments is the same departments that you have in your department page, if we open our department page there, then it should actually take you to the department page in your application. So if you press enter, yes, you can see that's basically it. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue creating our departments page. Yeah, so the first thing that we're going to have to do, remember this page is about departments, so we want to be able to create departments. Okay, add new departments using this page. We want to be able to delete the departments. We want to be able to update the departments, and we want to be able to get a list of all the departments, and even to search for the departments that we have. Okay, so this time around, I guess you can see we have our @code directive here, and inside this code section is basically where we're going to have where we're going to call our services for our create, read, update, and delete functionalities, and then the UI is going to be above the code section. Okay, so since we want to be able to search in our application, okay, we want to be able to search, right? We're going to create a string called search string. So private search string, that's what we're going to call it, and we're simply just going to say this is empty. All right, it's an empty string. Then thereafter, we are going to get our department. So we're going to create we're going to instantiate department here. So this department, and then we're creating a department of type department. All right, this department exists in employee management.shared, and that's what it is. It's a department. It's this department that we have here. All right, in simple terms. Yeah, so thereafter we're going to say this equals new department. All right, and since that's a method, and then we're just going to stop running our application anyway, just to free up our PC for a moment. Okay, then we're going to have a list of departments, since we want to be able to read a list of those departments. So we're going to have a list of type department. Okay, and we're going to call this list departments. I mean, a list of departments. You would just call it departments. So yeah, so this is a new list of department. Okay, and that's a method, and terminate there. Okay, so that's basically what we need for a start with our page. Okay, so now we're going to need to call the method, this method called protected. Yeah, protected override. Sorry, override. Yeah, async task. That's just a small letter. Async task on initialized. Yeah, like that, and we're going to put our block there. Okay, so inside this method, since this is an async method, sorry, we'll have to say on initialized async. Okay, now inside this method is where we're going to call our department service. So remember, if we go back to our imports.razor file, we called the department service, we called it department service with a small d. So this department service is what we're going to say equals, sorry about that, our departments list here that we have is the one that is going to be equal to our department service dot get all. All right, so that every time this page loads, this function is called, and after this function is called, all the departments are taken from the database. That's basically what we are trying to do here. Okay, then thereafter we want to have the functionality to search. So we're simply just going to say private bool, returning boolean, search. All right, so it's going to either return true or false. All right, and then remember that we also have the adding, the deleting, and all that, and we're going to create all that in this code section. So for search, we want to search for departments, right? So we're just going to say we're going to pass in a parameter of department of type department. Okay, this is a good naming convention because you won't get confused. You know, you just change from a capital letter to a small letter. Okay, then thereafter inside our search, we're going to implement the method of searching. So we're going to say if, excuse me, so we're going to say if string dot is now or white space. Okay, and then we're going to pass in the search string. Then return true. Yeah, so if this search string is now or there's nothing in there, it's just, you know, some space or anything like that, then it should return true. All right, and then we say if, again, departments. So returning true in this case means that it's just going to return all the departments. So if department, this department here, yeah, dot department name, since we can search by the department name, dot contains, this is basically like English, contains the set string, comma, we call the string comparison. Okay, sorry about that. We call the string comparison dot ordinary case ignore case. So we just make sure that we don't really it's not case sensitive when we're searching. Okay, in case you search with small letters, it should still retain even the values which have the capital letters of what you're searching for. All right, so thereafter this is an if block that is going to have the block. Okay, so in this case it should return true, but then if not all these, then it should just return false. So if there is no set string, it should just return false. Or if the set string here, this set string, does not match the department name that you've typed, then we should not have any results. Okay, so we just correct the spelling there, and there we have it. Okay, so we have implemented the search functionality just like that. All right, so we continue. After creating our search functionality, I mean, we can even just do something like that. So that's our search. We're going to go ahead and get a list of all our departments. All right, so we're simply just going to say private list department. Okay, so we're simply just going to say private list department and say get all. All right, and thereafter this is a method, so we do that. Okay, and I minimize that. So in this case, what we want to now do is say departments. Remember what we did at first to get all the departments. So we say departments, which is the list of departments, equals the department service dot get all. All right, so our department service dot get all, and then thereafter we want to return departments. Okay, so just mind the space there. Okay, we want to return the departments. Okay, so something like that, and then we're also just going to minimize that. Then the next functionality we're going to have is a functionality to add our departments. So we're simply going to say private void add, not really returning anything, and since that's a function, we do that. Okay, the block, and then we're going to use an if else block here. So an if else statement. So these things are actually very important, and remember this keyword void doesn't start with a capital letter, it actually just starts with a small v. Okay, so if we have the condition inside there, we have the if block there, we also have the else. Okay, so else, we also have the else block there like that. All right, so something like that. So now here we're going to put our condition. So we want to say if the department ID, so if department dot department ID yes, equals 0. Okay, then our department service, okay, our department service should add, sorry about that, this should be department service dot add. So our department service should add this department. All right, so we're checking if the ID is equal to 0, then the department service should add our department. All right, that's basically what we're doing. Otherwise, if not, then it should update. All right, so if it's not equal to 0, it means that it's existing, and therefore it should update. Okay, so we're simply saying department service dot update. All right, and we can simply say department there, and we terminate. All right, and then thereafter, now after doing that, we want to say department equals new department. Okay, terminate, and then we're going to actually now use a snack bar. Okay, I think we're going to add that later on. Okay, so here after that, we just want to get all the departments. After a department has been added or updated, we want to get the list again. All right, we want to get that list of departments again. Okay, so I guess you can see that's what we've done so far. So we've created the search functionality here. We have created the get all. We have implemented the get all method where we're getting a list of all the departments, and then we have implemented the add and update methods in there. Although we need to create a separate method for updating, so that in case somebody just wants to update, they just click on update, and we try to edit that or modify that particular row. Okay, so after adding, we're going to update it. So I'm simply just going to say private void, not returning anything again, update, and we're simply updating a department. Okay, and this department, we can just call it a record. Yeah, we can just call it a record like that, and then you can simply just do that. Okay, so thereafter, you can simply say department equals record. Okay, and state has changed. So and what we just have to do is say private again async task, and we're going to call this task delete, and this delete task is going to pass parameter type department, and we're just going to call that record again. Okay, okay, so since this is a method, we're just going to add the blocks there like that. Okay, and thereafter we're going to simply say department service. Remember, if we're deleting, we're trying to call it delete method, and we're passing in the record that we want to delete there. Okay, and thereafter we just want to get all. Okay, so I guess you can see that, and we terminate that line of code. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we are also going to implement a situation where before deleting we should be asked, okay, we should confirm whether we want to delete or not using a simple reference to JavaScript and an if statement. Okay, so I'm going to add that, but first of all, let's just see how our page actually is performing. Oh, by the way, we've only done the code part of the page. So now let's dive right into creating our UI. Okay, so let's just make sure that our project can obviously doesn't have errors, but you can simply just run and be confident that there are no errors. Okay, so at code section, just going to type a small message there, code section of department page done. All right, so you just say commit and you simply say push. All right, then thereafter, now if we run our application, you know, our pages are still going to be empty because there isn't really anything going on. Okay, so we are now about to create our UI using what we are calling MudBlazor UI Component Library. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is just put some important using statements there. So using system, we're going to need that. We're going to need choosing system.link. I'm going to explain what this link is for. Are we actually even using link here? Okay, so at inject MudBlazor. Okay, so we just want to, all right, let me not actually install what we don't need right now. Install, I think we just need these two for now, since our MudBlazor is also registered already in our imports.razor. Okay, so I think those are the only two things that we're going to need for now. All right, so thereafter, under that h3 heading there, we're going to have the following code. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create what we call a mud card. Okay, now the goodness with MudBlazor is that you're going to find all the documentation on their website. So for example, this mud card, right? If we want to know exactly what a mud card is from MudBlazor, we can actually just search for mud card. Yeah, if we search for mud card on Google, should actually just take us to the card, to the MudBlazor card. So mud card, I think, simply just stands for MudBlazor card. So that's basically it. So all our components, actually, you're going to find that they have the word mud in the as the prefix. So there you can see this is a MudBlazor card. So it's exactly what we just want. So I want to use this card, and inside this card we want to have a section where we're going to be able to add our department. Okay, and a small button here which is going to say add department. All right, so it's basically how the card, this is the code for this card. I guess you can see when you go down, MudBlazor shows you the code for any component that they have. So you just go to show code. Even for this one, it shows you this is the code which is related to that. And the goodness is, as long as you've installed MudBlazor, you can even just copy this code and put it in your application. It's going to work. All right, but we're going to do this kind of from the scratch so that you just understand. Okay, yeah, so what we're going to have to do now is, since we have created this card, we can provide it with an elevation, so that I'm going to show you what the elevation does when we actually run our code. So we can just say our elevation, we want our elevation to be 25. Okay, and inside the mud card we are going to include a header. So this header is called a mud card header. So if you know how to use HTML, I think this shouldn't also be a problem. Yeah, and we can just change that to a small letter E. Oops. Yeah, mud card header like that. Okay, and inside our mud card header we're going to have the card header content. All right, so we can actually even remove, or maybe, okay, let's just go ahead. We're going to have the mud, we're going to have the card header content, card header. Yeah, oh, sorry about that. Actually, I don't know what's with these typos. Header. Yeah, and that's card header content. Okay, yeah, like that. I guess you can see everything is becoming green. We can say Control D, Control K, D, just to make sure that yeah. Okay, so inside our card header we want to put these departments in here. Okay, so we're simply just going to have a mud text. All right, and this mud text, we can just say we want it to be typo want it to be an h6, but this is how you do it in MudBlazor. So typo.h6 h6 like that. All right, and inside here is where we want to have these departments, so we can just get rid of those h3s, then we can cut departments inside there, inside that tag. Okay, so that's going to be the content for a tag. All right, and then thereafter we're going to make our edit form. Okay, so edit form is simply where we are inputting the information, okay, about these departments. So after our MudCard header, we're going to have our MudCard content, okay, the actual content of the MudCard. So MudCard content, yeah, something like that. Then we're going to press enter, and inside our MudCard content we're going to have an edit form. So we simply say edit form like that. Okay, now this edit form should have a parameter which we call onValidSubmit. So we say onValidSubmit is equal to add. Okay, so if what you're trying to submit, if what you're trying to submit is valid, then the add function should be called. All right, and sorry about that, we're actually typing this in the wrong space. So this is supposed to be a parameter of our edit form in here. Okay, something like that. Yeah, it should be something like that. And then the model that we're dealing with for this edit form is the department model. Okay, so we're just going to say at department. Remember, this department is the same department that we have here. Okay, and we shouldn't have any errors. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I guess you can see that's what we have right now. And then what we're going to have to do now is for a department, we have department ID and department name, and then we also have employees. But when adding a department, we don't want to add a list of employees in that department. We just want to add the department name, and then we're going to be using those department names to be choosing where those employees belong, which departments those employees belong to. All right, so what we are going to have to do is, this time around, we are simply going back to our department page, and this time around we're simply going to create a text field, okay, a mud text field. So since we're using MudBlazor, it's going to be called a mud text field. So we simply just say mud text field. Okay, yes, mud text field like that. And then this mud text field is going to be an empty one because we want to get data from the user. So we're going to put the bind value. Okay, bind value, mind where I am actually typing those. So the bind value is the model, the attribute in the model. So right now the bind value that we want for this mud text field, we want to bind it to the department name. So department name, we're going to call it by calling department, this department here, and then this department contains a department name because it's of type department, and department contains department name. So we're simply just going to say department, and we say dot department name. So I guess you can see there are actually two attributes that we can call, department ID or department name, but the ID is being set automatically. So what we want to set here is the department name. Okay, there's nothing else that we are setting. So if we save these changes, and then let's run to see what we have created so far. We actually go ahead, when we were registering our MudBlazor, I noticed to say we actually didn't install, we didn't reference the CSS, the MudBlazor CSS in our layout.cs HTML here. Okay, so the only thing that we have, yeah, we didn't get our links, or we didn't get our we didn't get our CSS link. Okay, so if we go back to the MudBlazor documentation here on their website, I guess you can see we needed both of these links actually. So I think I only copied the first one here, which is this fonts, Google CSS. Yeah, okay, so we actually need this one because it's very important. Okay, so we're just going to copy that and put it before this component here, like that. All right, and then we're simply just going to save, and let's go back to our department page. All right, and yeah, let's just try to run our project now. All right, so our project is has run, and let's try to go to the departments page now. Okay, so that's basically what we have right now. We just have a text field where we're going to be able to type our department. So let's make this more interesting and actually add a button. Now we just want this button to be below the department here, so we want it to be somewhere here, but in this card. I guess you can see this is the card that we were talking about. So if we can view this code side by side, actually we can really just explain what we're talking about here. So we have a mud card with elevation of 25, and this elevation of 25 is what is making it seem as though it's not really seated. I guess you can see it's not really seated on the actual page here. You know, it's elevated, I guess you can see that. And this is our mud text. This department here is the departments that we have here in our mud text component. And then inside here in our edit form, we have a text field which is bound to the value of department name here. Okay, and this label that we have, name of department, is simply what we're being able to see here. So we're just going to add a button down here, just under the mud text field. We're going to add a button. Okay, and it's actually going to be a mud button because we're using MudBlazor. Okay, we're going to add a mud button. So this mud button should have what we call first of all an on click. Okay, so when the button is clicked on, what do we want it to do? So we are simply going to say on click. Now when somebody clicks on this button, we want it to call the add function. All right, and inside the add function is able to detect whether we're updating or we are just adding. So if we are adding, then the department ID is equal to 0, but if it's not equal to 0, then we are actually updating. All right, I guess you can see that there. So we call our add function on click. All right, and we just want this button to say add department. Yeah, something like that. And then, you know, we can add some source to this button. So we can simply say, okay, we want this button to have a color. So color is equal to color dot info. So info is blue according to MudBlazor. Yeah, so we're gonna have a blue button there. And then we can also have a variant. Okay, we can also just make sure that the variant is filled. So variant equals variant dot filled. You can try out all these others like variant dot outlined. I guess you can see I can change this to variant dot outlined or text. All right, so you can check out how those others work. I'm going to say filled because that's what we want it to be there. Okay, so this time around we can save our changes, and hopefully our hot reload is going to actually just bring the button without us having to restart the application. Okay, so as we're waiting for that to happen, we're simply just going to go ahead with what we're doing. And by the way, we're actually towards the end of the video because what we're doing right now is creating the department page, and then we're going to create the employee page. So let me just do that just to not create any confusion. So I guess you can see actually our add button has actually been added there, right, which is very, very okay. Okay, but then we don't like the position of this button here. All right, so we can even simply just put a mud spacer, something we call a mud spacer here, or we can just put a break. I mean, just some basic HTML break like that. All right, and this break should be able to just put some space in between the mud button and the mud text field. All right, so that should be loading. And I would like us to just be seeing, you know, our UI as we are creating. You know, we have the code here, but let's just get the code done and get a certain section of the code done, run the application, and then get back to the code until we're actually done. All right, so that we do things actually faster. Okay, we should be wrapping up the video. All right, so the next thing that we are going to do is, since we are actually, let's test if we are able to add these these departments actually. So let's just rerun the application. Sorry, let's just test if we're able to add these departments. So if we're able to add the departments, then we're also going to create now a situation where we're able to retrieve them from the database. So these departments want them to be added to the database. So remember, in our database right now, if we had to check in the department table, so we're just going to right click that, and then we're simply just going to say select top 1000 rows. Okay, just that basic command there, so that basic query. So select top 1000 rows. It should bring us a list, but it should be empty. Okay, list of departments that is empty. And by the way, as that is happening right now, we're just going to say departments, so that we go to our page there, and as we are waiting for our SQL server to respond here. Okay, so I guess you can see right now the list is empty because there are no departments. So let's just add some departments using our application, since that's now loaded and everything is okay. So we're gonna add a department, maybe for example marketing. Okay, so we simply just say add, and I'm sure it has been added. Now, for us to be sure that it has been added, let's go and try to run the query again. Okay, so we're going to just execute the query again. So now I guess you can see we have seen marketing. Okay, there is marketing in our database as a row in the department table with an ID of 1 and the department name of marketing. I guess you can see that. So let's try to add another one. So we're going to add planning, for example. So planning, add. Okay, now remember when we were creating the UI, we added something called a snack bar. All right, so we're just going to go back here, and we added something called a snack bar here. Now we want a situation where after adding, our application just doesn't stay dormant like that. Okay, we want it to be able to show us to say, oh, I've actually added this to your database. Okay, so we're going to add a snack bar to show us a notification to say, okay, this has been added to the database. All right, so we what we're going to do is in our add function there, we're simply going to, let me just go back to my Visual Studio. Yeah, so let's go back to the add function here. So now in the add function here, when everything is done, what we want to do is show that the department has been added. All right, so what we would like to do is actually inside here, after the department has been added, since this is where the adding is happening and this is where the updating is happening, we're going to have two different sentences for that. So we're simply just going to say snack bar. All right, snack bar dot add, then we do that, and then we type in the message. All right, so department, this should say department added, like that. All right, and we just want to put in maybe a color, so we just want to say severity, whatever, however you pronounce that word. Yeah, dot success. Okay, so that the snack bar is green, just to show us some success. All right, and then we're going to have the same line of code in our update section here, but then this is going to say department updated. All right, that's how we want to do it. All right, so now since we've done that, let's just try to restart our application and try to see now whether we are going to have these snack bars being displayed. And if you don't understand exactly what snack bars are until now, you are going to be able to see what these snack bars actually represent and what they do, and also how they work. So this snack bar department added is simply just going to be called only when the department has been successfully added. You see, it's running after that is done. Okay, so we're just going to run our application. Okay, and there we have it. So we go back to our departments page. So for the employees page, I'm going to show you how we're going to work fast. We're simply just going to get all the code from the departments page, take it to the employees page, and then modify it. And then we're actually going to be done for this particular video. So we're simply just going to add a department now. So let's say we want to add another department, maybe sales. All right, so this time around, if we say add department, okay, add department here, so it should say department added, so that we just don't remain thinking whether the department has been added or not. All right, so let's add another department. Maybe let's say we want to add finance, for example. Okay, the department has been added, and by the way, our enter button also works. Okay, because this is an edit form. All right, so I guess you can see basically we have implemented that, which is great. We can't see the updating right now because we don't have the buttons to update. Okay, so next thing is we want to create a table here which is going to show our departments, and then that table should have the buttons to update or delete each row. All right, so let's dive right into doing that right now. So we're just going to stop our application from running. Okay, stop our application from running, and then we are going to build a table, okay, using MudBlazor. All right, and then we're going to see how clean that actually is going to look. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're just going to put actually, I think even just a small break here. Yeah, just for some space between the mud card and the mud table. So I'm going to create a mud table here. A table, actually, it's a table, but since we're using MudBlazor, it's called a mud table. So I'm going to create a mud table, and inside this mud table, I think let's just create some space there and some space there. Okay, this is zoomed in so that you can actually just see everything properly. All right, so our table, first of all, should have an items attribute representing which items are going to be shown in the table, and the function which is actually getting those rows. Okay, so we have the get all function. All right, the get all function. Remember, we have a get all function which is here, which is the same one that we're referencing here. So it's getting all the departments. All right, now since it's a function, we have to complete it by doing that. All right, the get all function. Then thereafter, I think there's nothing much really to do after that. Let's just continue and actually get our table being built. So here we're going to have a toolbar. Okay, so toolbar content. Okay, and inside there we're going to have a mud text. Okay, just that. And then this text is we just want to have a header for our table. All right, so don't worry about that. So this one is simply just going to be, we're simply just going to say typo dot sorry, yeah, typo.h6. all right, yeah, typo equals, yeah, that should be in inverted commas like that. Yeah, exactly. So typo equals typo dot h6, and then here we're going to have the heading, which is employees. all right, and basically that's what we have right now. And then thereafter we're just going to put some space here so we can use what we call a mud spacer. all right, and yeah, we can actually just terminate it like a normal HTML component like that, instead of having those two there. So we can just have more like a mud spacer, and then we want to be able to search. But for now, I'm not going to put that, or actually, since we've implemented it here, we're going to actually try to also just include it. So in order for us to search in our table here, we are going to add something called filter. all right, a filter attribute, so that we're able to filter by what we're searching. Okay, so we're simply just going to say filter equals, and then we have those inverted commas, and then we can simply say new. Okay, new, we can just say func, and since these are departments, we're going to say department. Okay, and after doing that, we have comma there and bool. Okay, so this, yes, something like that. all right, then thereafter we want to have our search function being called there. all right, then thereafter we want to make sure that our bind value is bind department. okay, and then this will be equal to department, like that. all right, so there we have it. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, so we're implementing our search. We're searching for these departments. So this simply means that we actually put this space so that we have some space between these employees and the search button. all right, so for this search button, sorry, not really a search button, but actually a search field. Okay, it's going to be a text field. So we're going to create a mud text field. all right, and this mud text field is going to be bound to the search string. So remember that we created something called search string, and this is the string that we are going to be using to search. So at bind value, at bind value equals search string. all right, something like that. And we're going to just put a placeholder so that people cannot say, oh, here we have to search. Users can know to say, okay, here we want to search for these. So placeholder, and it should be like that. Placeholder equals, then we can just say search for, sorry about that, search for departments. Okay, and then we can save that as well. Right, so I guess you can see everything should be okay by now. Everything should be okay. Let's just try to run our application and see how far we have gone with making the table and the UI. all right, and I guess you can see what we have right now. So we have a table showing us the department ID and the department names. all right, and we can simply also search for those items from there. all right, so I guess you can see that if we try to search for marketing, press enter, it should just return marketing. all right, if we try to search for accounting, there it should just I guess you can see there is no accounting. So let's try to search for sales. Okay, there is also no sales. I think we have, oh yeah, we actually have sales. It's written there. Let's search for planning. We also actually have planning. So if it's now, it should just return everything. So I guess you can see what has actually happened there. Okay, so we can simply just close that as well. And by the way, before we actually go ahead, there's something that I actually need to explain. So I guess you can see our table is this small right now, but then it actually even shows us the rows, but we haven't defined any rows in here. So what happens is using this component library, MudBlazor, using the mud table here, what happens is if it gets, for example, right now it's getting the departments from the database, right? It's going to just automatically show you the fields, or the fields which are in that table. Okay, so right now yeah, it's okay if we have the department ID and the department name, but then let's say we had a lot of data in this table such that we wanted to trim what we want to show in this table. Okay, we would have to actually define our own row template. Okay, so we're going to do that in the next video. At least actually we should do that right now because we need some actions here. Okay, we need some actions to add to edit and delete. All right, so yeah, you can actually use this section to edit, but we don't want to use this section to edit or to delete. Okay, so let's just actually create our own custom table completely. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're simply going to inside the table there. Okay, inside the table we're simply just going to say, okay, now let's have some headers for our table. So we're simply just going to say header content. Okay, something like that. Then thereafter, in the header content here, we're going to have mud.th. Okay, so it's just basically like th. So mud.th department ID. I don't think we want to show the department ID. We just want to show the department name. Okay, department name, and we have another mud.th. And this mud.th should just show us our actions. So these actions are going to be actions of whether we want to edit or delete this particular row. All right, then we can actually stop our application from running. Just forgot to do that. All right, then thereafter we are also going to now have the row template. Okay, so we're going to have something here. So we're simply going to say row template like that. Okay, and inside our row template now we're going to have the row item. So mud.td, simply do that, and then inside our mud.td here, what we want to display here is the department name. All right, so we're simply going to say, okay, this mud.td has got a data label. All right, has got a data label, and this data label is going to show department name. Now this is just what the UI is showing us, but what exactly do we want to display? We want to display the department name itself, right? So we simply say at context. All right, remember, as I said, every time we are dealing with the database, we always have to deal with our database context class. All right, so we simply say context dot department name. All right, that context dot department name, that's what we want to show. And then apart from that, we also want to show some actions. Now we want to show two buttons. Okay, how to add a button to edit and a button to delete. So we're going to have a mud.td, which we're going to create differently this time. So this mud.td, of course, is going to have a data label. data label, and this data label is going to be called actions. All right, and it's a string, so we just have to put that actions inside there. So let's just cut that guy and put him inside there. Okay, should be done. I don't know what should be wrong with this, but I really suspect that there's nothing wrong anyway. It's just the mud table unrecognized chart content. Oh, it's actually supposed to be header content. That's exactly why we have an error. Okay, there's just something about writing code without errors. Yeah, so we have our actions there, and inside here we want to have two buttons, right? Now we're going to not really have buttons, but we're going to have what we call mud fabs. All right, so we're going to have one mud fab here, and this mud fab, we want it to call the update, okay, because we want it to be able to update. So want it to call this update function. So guess what do we need to do right now? Think about it if you've been actually following through, but otherwise I'm going to go ahead. So we're going to call the onClick method, and we're going to assign the onClick to update. All right, we're going to assign the onClick to update, but in this case what we want to update is the context itself. So we're just going to do something here. So oops, sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to have something like this. This is going to use lambda expression here, and we're going to pass in the context here. Okay, and yeah, we need to close that bracket as well. All right, so we shouldn't really have an error right now. Yeah, there are actually no errors. And thereafter, so we're calling the update, and we're updating the context there. We're passing in the context. Okay, then thereafter, what we want is to have at least a color. So want to say, okay, the color is equal to color dot primary. You're going to see what color primary is. Should be blue as well for MudBlazor. Then we also want to have an icon. We don't really want to have a whole word like update. No, we want to just have an icon, and this icon we're going to get it from icons. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're going to get this from icons dot material. All this is MudBlazor. You can just, you know, check it out from there. Field.edit. So we want the edit icon. All right, and I guess you can see that. Then let's just deal with even the size of this button. It shouldn't be that big. So size is equal to size dot small. Yeah, dot small. And then we also want the icon size. We want to set the icon size. So icon size is equal to size dot small as well. Size dot small. Yeah, something like that. So this time around, that is our edit button. So we can also create a delete button. So the only difference here is going to be that for this one, we're simply going to say Control D so that we duplicate, and then we're just going to change this to delete. So this other one will be deleting, and then we're also going to change our icon. All right, so the icon for this one should be the delete icon. All right, so instead of edit here, we simply say delete. And also the color, we're going to change it to secondary. All right, which should be red or something. Yeah, it should be red, secondary. All right, like that. And yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, so apart from that, okay, I think there's nothing really apart from that. We should have our proper table now. Okay, so let's run our application and see whether we have finalized with our departments table. Okay, so there we have our application, web application running. Okay, so we're just going to navigate to the departments page. It as well. So these are the actions that we're talking about. So this code here, I guess you can see, is basically what we're seeing here. So those are the mud fabs that we're seeing there. Okay, this is the edit, that's the delete. So let's try to do all the Crud functionalities. So first of all, let's start with adding again. So let's add a department. We're going to call it to delete because we're going to delete it. All right, so let's add it. Okay, so we should have yeah, our snack bar shows we've added that department. Okay, next we want to try to edit it. So let's edit this department, and we say to delete department, for example. Okay, and then we're going to add. Okay, so I guess you can see updates in real time. Okay, to delete department, and let's try to delete it now. So if we click delete, we should actually delete that department as long as our delete function works just alright. Okay, so I guess you can see we are currently not able to delete. So there should just be a small problem with our UI, but let's just try to reload that page actually. Okay, so to delete has not been delete. Oh, okay, yeah, so I think there was just something wrong. Yeah, we are actually able to delete as well. All right, so we can edit. Okay, edit, and we can also delete. All right, great. So that's basically it. And also we can read from our database because we can, you know, we have those. So let's just try to add them back. So we had planning, we have marketing, we had sales. Let's try to add something else like accounting. Yeah, so add. All right, so basically we have those departments. So remember, we can search, just type in, press enter. If you want to go back, just leave it empty and press enter. All right, so this is our departments page. So the goodness is, since we have this page here, it's going to be very easy for us to actually create our employees page. Okay, so we're just going to more like duplicate the code but edit it to be code for our employees. All right, so let's dive right into creating our employees page. Okay, so you know, we have to, when you're coding, you have to work fast. It's not about just trying to create everything. So since we have this page already, we're simply just going to get this code, and then we're going to use it to create the other page, but we're going to modify it to suit being on the other page, which is the employees page. So I'm simply going to create a razor component again, and this razor component is going to be called employee page. All right, so we can just call it employee page, and we can press add. Okay, so our page has been added, and we're simply just going to overwrite that code with this code. All right, so we're going to change the routing here to employees. Okay, so that when we go to our navigation menu here, or nav menu, we're simply going to put employees here. All right, employees like that, and we're going to save. Okay, thereafter we're going to go back to our employee page, and then we're going to make some changes for it to suit being the employees page. So first of all, employees belong to departments, so it's going to be necessary for us to actually get a list of departments. So we're not really changing any of this code right now. Actually, what we're going to do is just duplicate those, and then we're going to replace this with employee. Okay, we're going to have an employee of type employee. All right, so just keep up with that naming convention, is equal to new employee, and then thereafter we're also going to have a list of employees. So a list of type employee, which is this employee that we have here, and we're going to call it employees. All right, this list is going to be called employees, and it's going to be equal to a new list of type employee. All right, yes, that is easy up to that. And then this time around, yes, we are getting departments, but we're also getting employees. So employees are going to be equal are going to be taken by the employee service dot get all method. All right, so employee service dot get all. So those are the changes that we're making, and then we just basically make all these other changes. For example, here when searching, we're not searching for department anymore, we're searching for an employee. So the parameter we're going to pass there is going to be of type employee, and we're simply just going to call it employee there. All right, so that when we're searching, we can search for the employee by first name, by last name. So we can simply just do that. This is how we were naming, yes, first name. And then we're just going to have something like this. Let's just do that. And then let's just duplicate that. Okay. Excuse me. Yeah, something like that. All right, then we can also just duplicate this again so that we can search by last name as well. Actually, we don't need the last one here. Yeah, we can also search by last name, so we can search by first name and last name, and then from there we can also get a list of employees. So we have a list of type employee, and then remember how we're getting the employees. So we're saying the list of employees, which is called employees, will be equal to employee service dot get all. All right, so return, we're not returning departments, but instead we're returning employees. All right, so it should just be that easy. And then when it comes to adding, again, here we are not checking if the department ID is equal to 0. We're checking if the employee ID equals 0. So employee dot employee ID. All right, something like that. Then thereafter we're saying employee service dot add employee. All right, so I guess you can see just after making one of those pages, it's very easy to make similar pages. You don't have to start all from the beginning. All right, so something like that. Then we also replace this by employee. Okay, we are updating the employee details and department. So we are not dealing with departments right now, we're dealing with employees. So is equal to new. Okay, there we have employee as the record. So employee is the record, not department in this case. Employee is the record, and there we're getting the employee service dot delete record. All right, so that's basically it on the code side. So now let's go and fix our UI. Okay, so we have a small error there. Let's just try to fix it. Something is missing. So let's go now to the UI section. So we're fixing the code section. So for the UI section, we're going to start with our mud card here. Okay, so here in this case, we're going to have a grid which is going to be used inside the edit form. All right, so we're going to have a grid of some fields like the first name, the last name. We're going to have the man number, and also let's just look at the fields that we have here. Yeah, and also the department. So we'll have to select what department these employees belong to. All right, so that's not going to be difficult because we already kind of have a mock-up of the UI. So we're simply just going to return the employee page, and inside the employee page, we're simply going to start changing things. Like for example, here we're going to change that to employees. All right, and then the model for the edit form, we're going to change it to employee. All right, because we're dealing with employees now. And then here in our edit form, I'm just going to get rid of this for now, and then this time around, okay, we can actually just cut that instead of getting rid of it completely. Actually, let's first of all get rid of this break, and then let's just grab that mud text field okay, because we want it, but then this time around we want it to be inside a grid. Okay, so we're going to make a mud grid here. All right, since we're using MudBlazor, we're calling the mud grid. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm just trying to delete this space that we have there. Yeah, all right, so inside our mud grid we're going to have what we call a mud item. Okay, and this mud item is the one that is going to have our mud text field. So this mud text field is going to be, so here let's change this label to first name, because we're trying to enter the first name here, and this first name is employee. The bind value now is what we're changing. There we're just changing the data label, what shows as the value that you have to import. Now here the actual value that we are binding to is the employee, is the first name. Actually it's just first name. Yes, first name, like that. All right, so I guess you can see this is our mud item. So we're just going to pass in some parameters of how it should look on different screen sizes. So I'm just going to say on an extra small device it should be 12, on a small device it should be 4, and on a medium device let's say something like that. Okay, and then what we're going to do now is we're simply just going to duplicate this. All right, we're going to duplicate this up to there so that that space is included, and then we're just going to say Control D, Control D, Control D. But if not, well, you can just find a way of copying and pasting or typing the whole thing. Matters whether you want to save time or not. All right, so this time around what you just want to replace here is, since that's first name, we want this to be last name. Okay, and we just change this to last, like that. All right, then thereafter, apart from that, we want to be setting the man number. So inside here we're going to change this name label to man number, and apart from that we are going to assign this bind value to man number. Okay, that's how it exists in our employee. Yes, that man number. And then thereafter here we want to try to select a department. So now what we're going to do is, instead of just using a mud text field, we don't just want people to be typing departments that they just dream about. We want the departments to actually come from the database. Okay, so this time around we are not going to have a mud text field. We're going to delete the mud text field but stay inside the mud item, and then we are going to add a mud select, what we call a mud select. All right, remember when I was trying to demonstrate in the beginning of the video, we were just trying to select, we were selecting from a list. All right, so we're gonna have a mud select, and inside this mud select we're going to have a for each statement. So we can simply just say at for each. This is how we can add code in our UI. So at for each, okay, we're going to put the condition in there. All right, so we have something like that. Yes, and then our condition is that we're simply going to say var department in the list departments that we have in our code section. So remember, we've got a list of departments, this one. So this is the list where we want to check for a department. All right, so this is now where we're going to have, inside our for each is where we're going to have our mud select item. All right, and this mud select item, okay, let it just okay, yeah, so I think I just have to manually even terminate it. Mud select. Okay, so I think let's just deal with this error that we're having here. don't know what exactly why exactly we're having this error here. Okay, it should just be a Visual Studio problem, because if we try to build our application, I think we're not actually even going to have any errors. If there are some errors, then they should just be very little, not 28 errors in my code right now. Okay, so I think this is misplaced. Let's just remove it from there. Yeah, that was misplaced there. And okay, it seems like it's still trying to build. Okay, so now the errors are reduced to 2. Yeah, I think there shouldn't even be any errors right now. They should be done. Let's just go to our output. Okay, it's still running. Okay, so what's this? Oh, okay, so we haven't just finished actually making our changes. Alright, so let's just continue. Now inside our mud select item, here we're going to make sure that what we want to view is our department name. Alright, so I'm going to say at department dot department name. Alright, and then here we just have to make sure, say we give the value that it's using to pick the actual values as an integer, and then we are actually using the department ID, because the department ID is an integer and it is unique throughout all the departments. Okay, so we simply say department dot department ID. All right, so that should do. And then thereafter, in our mud select, in our mud select here, we should actually do the same. So t equals int. Okay, and then we can just put a label, just as we were doing with all these other text fields. So our label here, we wanted to show select department. Okay, and apart from that, we want to set our bind value as well, which is very important. So our bind value here in this case is going to be employee.department ID. Remember, if we go back to our employee model here, we have a department ID. All right, so we want to select the department by the department ID, but using the department name. All right, so our bind value in this case is the department ID. So we're simply going to say employee dot department ID. All right, so I guess we should be okay up to that moment there. All right, then apart from that, here we have this button. Remember, we have a button to we have a button which is adding or updating our employees. So right now it says department. We're just going to change that to employees, or actually employee. Yeah, because we're not adding a list directly. Okay, so that's great. We can't run our project right now because we haven't changed the table patch yet. Otherwise, let's actually continue, and that's why we actually still have some of those errors there. So here we want to bind to employee. All right, want to bind to employee, and this is the same employee that we're having inside there. Okay, and apart from that, we also have employee there, but remember that this is a class, so it's the actual class employee, so it has to be something like that. Okay, and apart from that, we change this text to search for employees. Okay, and apart from that, now we create the table for the actual employees. So this table is going to have the employee first name, it's going to have the first name, it's also going to have the last name, and then we're also going to have that's the man number, and then we're also going to have the department where that employee works under department, and then we're also going to have actions. So we're going to follow the same order in this case here. So we already have our actions, they are just the same. So we're going to create these other fields like first name. So here we change to department, instead of department name we just say first name, and we also say last again, just as we were doing previously. Okay, and the MudTX there. Okay, then thereafter we have man number. Okay, that's just the label, not man number name, but just man number. And then here we have the department. So here we also have to change context dot first name. Yes, since these are employees, here we have context dot last name. We also have context dot man number. All right, and then thereafter we have our department. Now our department is inside department, not directly inside our employees, so we have to say context dot department, context dot department, yes, dot department name. Okay, because we want to show the name of the department, not the ID of the department. All right, and I think after this we should be good to go. I know our Visual Studio is still showing that we have some errors, but according to the look of things right now, I don't think we actually have any errors here. Okay, it should just be Visual Studio misbehaving. All right, so let's just say Control Shift. Okay, actually let's just run the project, because I'm very confident that there is nothing wrong and there is nothing left. So if our project actually runs just right, then we're actually going to be done with this video. Okay, so it still suggests that there is an error somewhere. Okay, so if you can't navigate to the error using this error list, then we can use the output. So in the output, you just go where it says error. Okay, so it's talking about the argument. So I guess you can see we didn't finish making the changes, so that has to change to employee, because this is our employee table. Okay, and then this is the other error that we had. Where is it? Okay, so employee, add employee. Okay, so this one should be okay, but let's just see the name employee. Oh, actually it's not spelled well. All right, so I think the output gives you a better description of the errors and all that. So maybe you can develop a tendency of actually using the output window compared to the error list, because sometimes the error list actually misbehaves. So now I'm confident that we don't have any more errors, and let's run our project. Okay, so it suggests that we still have. All right, so let's just look for the errors. Oh, okay, so there is an error there. It suggests that we have an error somewhere on our Sage. Okay, so let's just try to see what exactly the error is. All right, so I actually see what I did here. So we weren't really supposed to duplicate this line at that time. We're actually supposed to say all. So let's just remove that. Okay, so we're actually supposed to say all, because this is an if statement and these are conditions inside the if statement. All right, so that's basically what we are actually doing. Okay, So we just say all, and I really think we don't actually need one of these brackets, okay, because first of all we are closing that, and in the second one we are closing that one there. All right, so that's basically a small syntax error that we had there. Okay, and apart from that, I think there were actually more. Okay, so it's simply just everything is simply pointing to that. Okay, let's check this one. Yeah, all the errors were actually just existing because of that. So now let's run our project. Errors will always be there when you're programming, so you just expect them and be patient and thoughtful as you are trying to sort out your errors. All right, so our project runs. So now let's go to the employees. All right, let's check. Get to the employees page, and we should be able to see whether we have some employees yet. So I don't think we have. Okay, so I just added this to the database in order for us to show whether we are able to be we're able to pull. But then let's take, for instance, we don't have anything from the database. All right, and also I just added a line of code to show to ask whether I want to really delete. So if I go back to my add method, sorry, my delete method, I guess you can see there's this line of code here, so that we're calling. So bool confirmed equals await JS runtime and the rest. So we're just asking whether to confirm. Are you sure? And yeah, if they confirm, then it should actually go ahead. So if confirmed is true, then yeah, it should go ahead and actually delete and display that it has deleted. So you can just go ahead and add this line of code in your delete method. All right, just make sure that your delete method looks something like this. Okay, so I guess you can see if we go back to our application, we're going to be able to add and in case you have any errors, feel free to just ask, and also refer to the GitHub repository, because this is the same code that I have on the GitHub repo, so you're able to just navigate there and see where the problem is. All right, so let's say man number, we selected department, let's say marketing, and we say add employee. That should do it. So I guess you can see the employee has been added, and yeah, there we have it. So we can add, let's just go ahead and try to add another employee in another department with maybe a man number like that. We add this employee, and that employee has been added, so we can actually also edit these employees. And by the way, we're missing something showing actions here, so we can just basically go to our code and also just fix that. So that is just here, so we don't have actions here, so we just duplicate that and add actions. And I think that's the last change we should be making to our code actually. So we just go back, and I guess you can see if we try to edit, let's say okay, this person has been moved from this department, they are now in the planning department. That should do as well. So employee has been updated. You can simply just change that from code as well, and I guess you can see we are actually basically done. So for that actions to show, we'll just need to restart our project. Okay, let's just finalize and make sure that everything is okay. Okay, so we're going to run the application again. Okay, we can go to employees, and we still have those employees, and our action is right there, and our table is complete. So well, basically this is you know, how you can create some clean UI using UI component UI component library called MudBlazor, using C#, in ASP.NET Core 6. Alright, with SQL Server and SQL Server connection, and with not that much of code. Yeah, I'm saying not that much of code because I have seen other small applications like this with so much code, but in this case, we just had to create a generic interface, a generic service to deal with all the Crud functionalities, and I hope you remember all the steps. In case you need guidance with the steps that we've taken in this in the development of this small system, I'm going to actually put these contents in the description section below. So thank you very much for staying tuned up to now, for watching this video, and see you in the next one.